after that, it's not too much.
What jumps out to me is Clockwork's basically their stun. I mean, whenever you look at it, yes, you have homing missile. It's not super reliable, sometimes not even skilled. But Clockwork's got battery assault. He's going to have his hook. He's going to have his cogs. Those are the only ways that you can do things to like break Bane's channel of Fiend's Grip. And Fiend's Grip is just such an excellent counter to a gyrocopter in general at all phases of the game, BKB or not. Viper, again, like Ben was saying, you've got, okay, who are you going to slow down? Like, yes, I understand the Tiny's a problem. You want to be able to slow him down. Viper Strike's going to be excellent for that. But the amount of damage and how well Alliance is going to be able to spread the map, regardless of what NiP is actually trying to do. Does NiP want a team fight? Fine. Tiny can go farm with IO. He jumps in the fight at any point if you do try to jump somebody. Or if you want to play more of a farm-centric game, if you really want to take your time in developing the gyrocopter, now you have to deal with an IO Tiny split push. And, you know, it's not that NiP's draft is completely unsalvageable. It just feels a little thin. Unless their room for error feels very, very small right now.
I heavily disagree. I mean, I really feel that NiP's lineup is still quite strong versus Tiny. Viper is an excellent pickup versus Tiny through and through. He's a solid counter. Again, I think the Gyrocopter Disruptor is a good way to open up against a Tiny Wisp. I would agree with Ben, though, that the ban out of the Darkseer was a bit unnecessary. I feel like it would have been an excellent offlaner for them. That being said, Jonas Fan, he plays an excellent Clockwork. It's a go-to hero for them. It's a comfort hero for sure. And if they want to be able to get an early start in this game, you're going to need something aggressive, especially since Disruptor doesn't offer you the most roaming capabilities in pre-level 6, right? Like, maybe he uses that level 2 glimpse to be able to get a catch out in the lane, but it's kind of unlikely. So if they want to get an early jump and it's a comfort hero, Clockwork's all right. Again, I do agree with Ben, though, that the Darkseer would have been an optimal pickup just for synergy-wise in their lineup. Ogre Magi to wrap things out.
What about this Mirana, though? Mirana picked up in conjunction with the Bane and Wisp, so does that mean this is going to be an offlane Mirana, an offlane Bane, a side lane core farming Mirana, which we know from history has been a bit hit or miss. People like to praise that a Mirana who seems to be a bit more proactive is one that can really thrive in the game, one who just tries to buckle down and farm, you know, could risk being a bit unreliable.
Dual offlane, I would say, and leave something range that is strong versus a Clockwork would be my go-to. But Ben, what do you think?
I'm just trying to decide what they're trying to do with the Bane Mirana, because I think if they kill the Viper once or twice, then it's really easy for the IO Tiny, and I don't know if they can deal with the Ogre Magi and Disruptor. As far as Bulldog's heroes, he played, Phoenix yesterday. Don't really like some of the other heroes that he plays, like Lone Druid. Bounty Hunter has been banned out. NP's been banned out.
A lot of Bulldog hate in these bans right here.
Yeah.
So there's only so many options left there in the field, and then we're reaching back to, even Bristleback has been banned out.
I think Phoenix is probably actually one of the safer for
Oh my! Is this a qualifier debut?
It's a Pycat Mirana.
Okay.
This is pretty good stuff.
I feel like we're all a little bit like, whoa, what is happening right now?
No one likes Venomancer anymore because of Glimmer Cape.
Glimmer Cape, yeah.
So
lots of additional magic risk. Pipe has even been buffed a bit, so, you know.
But no one gets Pipe, really. And it's very rare that people get Pipe. A lot of people get Glimmer Cape.
But maybe in the right kind of a game, when you have a Venomancer on the other side, might get you a bit percolated to get one, and then it's only going to be stronger than it once was before. So, and I've heard this from not just you, I've heard this from multiple other pros that are here, as that Venomancer's rip, you know. So a big time to pull it out, Alliance. Going against NiP, I can't help but be a bit excited. They must have some sort of confidence there, pulling out something like what looks like a core Mirana, pulling out a Venomancer. This is very intriguing to me, and I'm going to get a bit excited about this.
I think it'll scale a lot better, because if Bane and Mirana don't get kills, they offer very little in team fights, and you're just all in on your Tiny at that point. If Veno gets a lot of farm with like Veil and Scepter, even through a Glimmer Cape's only a single target. If you hit 3 heroes with that Poison Nova, people are going to die. Everyone's going to die.
All right, well, with that said, we're going to hop into our first game of our very first series today for European qualifier action. I'm going to throw it over to our casters who are going to be taking the coverage over. It's going to be AC and Capitalist. Gentlemen, have some fun with this one. Enjoy.
NiP versus Alliance, game number 1 to lead off our European coverage here today at the TI5 EU Hub. I'm AC, joined by Capitalist, and of course we'll have Cuddle Guy and Merlini back to break down the game following this opening game. So let's talk a little bit about the lanes, Capitalist. Doesn't look like we're going to have too much bloodshed early on. How do you think the lanes are going to end up stacking up here?
I mean, so I'm still going to go back to the dual offlane simply because I think that the Venomancer is by far one of the best heroes to 1 versus 1 against the Clockwork to really punish that pickup. the whole Glimmer Cape idea is completely on point. There's a reason we don't see much Venomancer. I think that in order to pick up a Venomancer, you have to 5th pick him, and you have to put him in a 1 versus 1 scenario where he will dominate against that hero. Now, obviously, NiP are going to be able to read that opportunity, and they'll probably switch up their lanes accordingly, which, again, how our Alliance going to be able to respond. Right now, they've centered up 4 heroes at that bottom rune just to be able to secure it. Admiral Bulldog is going up to the top lane to try and secure that, but you could see NiP are still going to be running an aggro tri-lane in order to dodge and trying to put the Clockwork up against the Bane Mirana. Whoever goes up against just because you switch up your lanes, though, doesn't necessarily mean you're in a winning position. Even if you do successfully dodge, Jonas Samfan is going to be really easy kills if they just leave him with a Bane, they catch him out once, and then he's 1 versus 1 against a Mirana, right? I think it's a winning scenario for basically whoever goes up against the Clockwork no matter what. And at that point, I don't feel NiP have the greatest roaming heroes to be able to disrupt that middle lane. The Ogre Magi can sit there middle with the Viper up against the Tiny Wisp, and that's probably what we'll see later on.
We can already see some damage being done to Viper. This will be a heavily contested middle lane. At least if NiP is on point, they cannot afford to give Loda and Ake the start they want here. And
oh, nice spot out there.
Yep. We actually already saw that Alliance lost a ward as well, so their vision is going to be lacking a little bit in mid. Up at top, we've got the aggro tri-lane. It's going to be Bulldog just trying to soak whatever he can. He's already put his first point into Plague Ward, so just not wanting to allow them to get a whole lot of free damage on the tower, wanting to play defensive, wanting to allow himself a good bit of vision. And I'm with you guys. Whenever it comes to Venomancer in this latest patch, has seemed to have been underpowered, has not been utilized much, and usually with good reason. What's the play if you're NiP here? You know you're in an advantageous position regardless of the hero that's up there, let alone one who does have some defensive capabilities, but is very easy to pick off if you manage to get on top of him. Do you get super aggressive early, or you just simply take the farm and try to deny him levels?
You know, I just want to point out something small. So the spamming out of the wards is a really good play from Admiral Bulldog. He, first of all, spotted out that Disruptor was going to go for a clear through jungle play in order to catch out, because they're in a bad position, I feel. They really need to actually get a pick off on this Venomancer and start putting pressure on the lanes, because the Clockwork very naturally has a lot of pressure on him. If he gets caught out by the Bane once, he's dead, right? There's nothing to stop that at that point in time. There's no one who can wake him up. There's no deceptive play he can pull off to dodge that arrow. He gets hit by the arrow. It's going to be a 3, maybe 4-second arrow most likely, and then he's pretty much done for. So he's got no play to be able to pull because that's continually being blocked by Mad. I would say that NiP probably just need to make this dual lanes at this point. I don't think the Ogre Magi is going to be able to put any pressure whatsoever on this top lane. I think Admiral Bulldog's just basically sacrificing some Plague Ward gold to the enemy in order to just gain information constantly, which means he should never get caught out. And they do need to, again, still worry about the Viper in the middle.
Here's the dive at top. Rushing behind the Tier 1, Bulldog making for the woods. No help seems to be on the way. And this will be an easy first blood for NiP, and that was the question that I had, was how long do you wait, if at all, to do that? They did give him a fair amount of levels, which, I mean, is certainly a win so far as that goes. He does end up being the first blood, but got level 2.5 before that, and pushing that tower might be something they look to. There's going to be an arrow. He cogged out, so that's going to buy him some time, but the Nightmare was there. Pycat and Bucking Mad going crazy, trying to get the damage done. Looks like he'll be able to eat his way through, so Johannesson fan staying safe, at least for the moment. And I didn't see his level before, but it seems like, yeah, he's hanging around. I mean, level 2 against a dual lane that got that much kill potential, really not bad. And mid, in the meantime, is going to be a toss avalanche, only about half health, and that's going to prompt a TP reaction. That should be more than enough to force Alliance back, and it will be.
I'm glad NiP finally went for the dive. If they just sat there waiting it was pointless to keep the Ogre Magi up there. So they finally put pressure on the Venomancer, say, hey, this isn't going to be free lane for you. We obviously have this diving potential, and now they put Steel Kid middle lane because the Viper was being gone on. But I also think that, again, if the Ogre Magi ever goes top, they immediately just dive, right? If he's up there, they should be diving. If he's not, he should be middle to try and help out the Viper as much as possible. Just because he's a Viper doesn't necessarily mean that he can win up against a Tiny Wisp. It's very easy to make a mistake against a Tiny Wisp, even though Viper would be the least likely of heroes to do so.
Taking a look at the last hits, we could see Mirana topping the board at 22 along with the Gyrocopter, so even there. Slight win for the Venomancer in mid right now. 18-14 on Tiny, range advantage. Not something you want to overlook. 13 last hits for the Disruptor, so he's getting a little bit of farm priority there as well. Mad has got eyes on Steel Kid, and doesn't look like there's going to be any real reaction there, and there won't be. But taking a look at Tiny's level, he's a level 4. Okay, not sure about his level. A quick 6. That's going to be 3.5 for him, so not too bad, and we can talk about that as we are going to have a quick pause. But let's talk about the Viper for a moment. I mean, in most of the Viper games that I've seen lately, at least in these qualifiers, Midas has been prioritized. Do you think this is a Midas game for a Viper, or maybe something a little bit more midway?
I would say that they should try and tank up, right? There's a lot of burst damage coming in. The Mirana and Tiny, both as cores, are very burst-oriented in the first 25 to 35 minutes. They don't have a whole lot of really good sustained damage. So if they can actually get a mech, I think that would be an excellent pickup for the Viper. You don't have anyone else who's likely to go for it. Usually it's the offlaner who would consider it, but Jonas and Fawn, obviously, the Clockwork is a very unlikely target. Top lane, though. Yep,
they're going to engage. Bucking Mad there, trying to chase down the Disruptor. Okay, with him, and they've got to be careful. Who's going to swoop in Gyro? They may get him, and there's actually going to be the glimpse that sends him back, and that actually created a bit of a problem. However, they will be able to follow it up. Rocket Barrage is there. Kinetic Field traps him in, and the TP out will make it just a 1-0, but nonetheless, a very, very good kill for NiP, trying to punish Alliance for getting aggressive in doing so. And this early game is not looking great for Alliance in just about any way. You're talking a pretty big win at this point, a 10 CS lead for the Viper in mid. A little bit of slow development on Ake as well as Loda, especially with that failed kill up at top. And the Clockwork at 11 CS, that's really not bad. He did end up dying, or being run back to base, excuse me, coming close to dying, but he kept himself alive, and he's at level 4.5 too, so good start for NiP.
Yeah, I think that was just like Alliance maybe underestimating how smart NiP are, but I felt like that was a smart play, but it was also kind of obvious at this level of game that you're going to do something like that, right? So the Gyrocopter zones out the Venomancer. They're all three squishy heroes. None of them wants to tank up the Gyrocopter. So Gyrocopter just zones out Venomancer, says, okay, if you come forward, I'm going to trade you 1 for 1. My support's going to go down, but I'm going to kill you, #worth, right? And then the other two heroes go forward, but what Hanskin does is he separates himself so much, he moves as far to the left as humanly possible into that side shop, and then glimpses, which then separates those heroes again. And the fact that Mad ran forward there, I think, was the worst possible play, because the Wisp just could have gotten out. He underestimated, I think, the power.
Kinetic Field, that's going to catch Ake, and he will be able to tether out of it, but no! Didn't make it down to the low ground.
Loda.
NiP able to tally yet another kill. It's 3-0. They do use the Mirana ulti. They want to try to make something happen in reprisal. Lotus right there. He is at half health. Hanskin way far out. There's going to be the Avalanche and the Starfall. Toss finally gets Alliance on the board, so they do get a return. It's going to end up being support for support, 1-3.
Yeah, that's on Loda, by the way. He should have run just like straight right and not hug the cliff, because that obviously doesn't leave the Wisp any room to be able to complete that tether and get over it. So they may be looking to make another dive here in the top lane as soon as possible. Notice also that Alliance are making this sort of like pseudo off lane. Like, he's basically an off lane Venomancer, right? Because he's facing the most dangerous lane of all. Yep. They are going to try and put some more pressure on him with that Observer Ward behind the tower to make sure that they can't dive him and not get caught by some rotations by Alliance. But notice that he's level 5. I mean, they're making it work. In my opinion, I think they're doing a pretty good job with this Venomancer, and they also stacked up the Ancients.
Up, down at bottom. Clockwork forced to use his cogs. They're continuing to try to roam and find kills before Ake hits level 6. And it was just kind of a cursory run, as it looks like they're just honestly trying to give them some farm priority in bottom lane, so not the biggest deal in the world. But Ake finding level 6 is going to be very important, especially as Clockwork gets closer and closer to 6. If you're Alliance, I feel like you want to be the ones who begin setting the pace and the tone across the map in terms of skirmishes. But if Clock hits 6, and given he's had a decent start, they will be able to start taking fights. Arrow's going to be shot using the Plague Ward for vision, but does miss. Very well dodged by Hanskin, and so far the map beginning to restabilize with a bit of a different look so far.
Yeah, that's a little bit awkward. NiP blew a smoke in order to get into that position, and all that ended up happening is that Pycat revealed himself by throwing out an arrow, and of course they knew Pycat was there. I'm not sure what their play really was going to be with just a Disruptor against the Mirana and Venomancer, but that was just Alliance trying to make a roaming play, gets split out by the ward, and NiP just failing to capitalize on that information, I think.
Got a TP down the bottom. It's going to end up being a 3-on-2 as Hanskin has made his way down. And they're really doing a pretty good job of trying to keep Loda off of farm. We can see he's actually right on par with the Mirana, but beginning to fall. I guess he's kind of near the top. He's not that far behind, all things considered. So not in too bad a shape.
Yeah, Gyrocopter still. I mean, you are with the initial prediction, right?
Yeah.
Is that like Gyrocopter does have a decent amount of farm ahead of him. A little bit's going to be skewed because like the Plague Wards are coming into play. It's why Disruptor has a decent amount of CS.
Right.
The Gyrocopter probably some of that is Venomancer wards as well, but he is a good 500 gold, and that's a decent start with the laning phase, which neither one of them has a kill to start with.
We can see Ake's got a good stack on the Ancients there. That's going to be gigantic, so long as it doesn't get stolen. And that's something Alliance is going to have to be careful of. If they're going to stack those camps, they cannot afford to have them spotted or lose fights near them, because the Gyro is going to be able to take them very easily, especially if the Viper, as you mentioned, decides to go mech instead of a greedy item like Midas. So they have to be very, very aware of that and try to take those sooner rather than later.
I'm sorry, I thought Era actually got the assist on both of the kills that happened there in that top lane, but he did get one of the kills, so that actually does put them quite even, right? So it's just the kill gold that he's pretty much ahead over Loda right now. The Alliance are rotating around as much as humanly possible because the setup by NiP, I think, was pretty good. They like can't win against the Viper anymore. He's level 8. They're obviously just going to get spammed out. As soon as he gets Viper Strike, that lane becomes so much more dangerous. So they need to also make sure that Emerald Bulldog doesn't fall too far behind. I think he did a good job getting levels, but they need to now get him farmed to be an effective core position. So putting him in the mid lane against the Viper makes a lot of sense. This matchup is incredibly favored to the Venomancer.
Era in trouble, gets caught with the Avalanche. Oh, he's so dead.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a little surprised that he hung that far forward whenever there were that many people missing from Alliance. They had two waiting in the wings up there for at least 60 seconds. And being a little bit greedy, and it ends up biting him in the back a little bit there. In the meantime, though, the Viper has continued to open himself up a fairly decent net worth lead, even over top of your two primary cores in the Tiny and the Gyrocopter. Bulldog has rotated mid, as you said, trying to give him a little bit more farm priority, trying to allow him to really assume that core role. And
Venomancer is one of the few heroes that can actually do really well 1v1 against the Viper, right? He just spams out Plague Wards, and the Viper's usually lane dominance isn't really that effective. But Hanskin's going to catch Admiral Bulldog. They should be able to get a free kill here.
And going to wait it out. There's the glimpse back. Call down is going to be there as well, so easy one.
Double ultimates being used. I mean, neither one of them has a especially high cooldown, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, why not make sure you secure it? And
oh, the toss! They're going to be able to get Seal Kid! That was an excellent play! They should pop him right away. The TP's in from Hanskin. They might be able to punish someone with a glimpse.
Oh, Bucking Mad, caught out, trying to get a return kill. Nice Nightmare. Those going to TP right in their face. Doesn't matter. Cogs are there.
Nice.
He's going to be pushed down and a little glitched out, but they end up going 2 for 1 in a sequence of about 60 seconds. So I'm really, really liking the way NiP has managed this. However, that said, Alliance still has yet to really see the IO Tiny come online the way they want to, in terms of being able to just, you know, head off into some other corner of the map and be able to relocate in on demand as needed. And that's really where we're going to find out how well, I think, this Alliance lineup is going to be able to compete with NiP. Taking a look at Era's itemization, he just bought something, I think. Yeah, he's got his phase boots, he's got his Aquila, and Belt of Strength up as well. So he's looking okay.
Yeah, I think that last engagement there in the top lane really favored Alliance quite heavily. So as a support for a support, I think Alliance did like this really next level initiation. The toss in, the Bane then able to, I thought was going to sleep instead just Fiend's Grip. Either way, it sets up his allies to be able to make the charge in. They trade off support for a support, but they forced a lot of rotation. They gain a lot of information. They're also keeping NiP like off kilter, and that's what the Alliance are doing with the whole switch up of the lanes constantly. They're putting themselves in favorable situations, yes, with the Venomancer facing up against the Viper and moving the Tiny Wisp out, but they're also keeping NiP so they don't actually know exactly where the lanes are going to be, because Alliance do have the stronger roaming heroes, particularly with the Mirana, but the Tiny Wisp have a ton of kill potential right now, just be able to pop one hero, and same goes with the Bane kind of setting up his allies if he catches out somebody alone. So it does create a lot of pressure on NiP and makes them feel rather scared to sit any heroes alone, and I don't think they ever should. Essentially, they've got to kind of sacrifice a little bit of lane experience and gold for hero safety at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially whenever you look at Loda. He's already over halfway to his Scepter, and that means his farm's going to explode. Scepter comes online, they can start looking to take that Ancient Camp, which should be about max stack by now, I would imagine. And the IO is just short of level 6. So once IO hits level 6 again, I think that's really where we're going to see NiP begin to have some problems, unless they can continue to really pressure the lanes and not give up a whole lot of returns. It will be the mech pickup from the Viper, and I agree with you completely. I think with a game like this where you know they want to skirmish on the side of Alliance, you really need that extra survivability for your team. It will be a Midas pickup instead, though, on the Mirana this time.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's honestly a go-to item for Mirana. One, she's actually pretty level dependent. Being able to have all of your maxed out basic abilities is actually pretty important. The least one obviously being Leap, but it's still quite strong. And also, you can't farm very well on Mirana. At least I feel it's very hard to farm on Mirana. Midas makes that a lot easier for you. So you can actually still be active, keep up in kills, but Pycat gets caught.
There we go. Static Storm, Kinetic Field. He is super dead. He took a blind arrow into the woods. No, he's actually going to be able to make it away. Just barely. Even able to use his bottle in between the thunder procs.
Yeah, Thunder Strike. The fail play there from NiP, not keeping counter vision because, you know, it's against Mirana. You should always have counter vision, particularly on your Disruptor, but smart play by Pycat getting off the ultimate just before he gets glimpsed back into the silence.
800 gold until Scepter for Loda, and you know, honestly, like, that could have gone either way. If Pycat connects on that arrow, that becomes a big skirmish up there, and I'm pretty sure Ake should be level 6 by now. He's been
they're going to get Limp real quickly here. Ake with the extra bit of damage, but still Limp is so tanky to get the Fiend's Grip on top of that. NiP, they're going to lose their hero no matter what, but Seal Kid, can he actually make some punish here?
There's going to be a kinetic field that's going to keep them from retreating. Is that enough to allow any kind of a return? Nope. Looks like they don't want to engage him. Johannesson fan chasing him down. He's out of mana. There's going to be the Plague Nova, and
nice relocate.
Really beautiful, really well executed that time. So they end up dropping the Viper, and they don't lose anyone in the process. So well played by Alliance. They are going to have Ake coming back, but he should be able to tether up to Bulldog and make it back to safety easily.
Yeah, they're going to lose their Tier 1 tower, so... wow, that was actually pretty clutch. If Loda had actually gotten the toss in time to be able to get the last hit on that tower, it would have been a huge win for Alliance. I still think Alliance are just playing better. Just the rotation and putting the pressure on NiP, I think they're doing an excellent job. They've caught out the Gyrocopter, which I don't think should happen. The catch on the Viper was just so unexpected at that point, right? Because the tiny combo isn't going to be able to kill the Viper anywhere close to killing the Viper, right? But they made full committal with 4 different heroes there in order to get that kill. And then you even have the Mirana coming in as well. So NiP didn't expect that to happen, right? They expected to be able to TP in and save the Viper. And if they don't save the Viper, at least the mass TP should be able to catch out a few members of Alliance and punish them quite heavily. But it was such an unexpected play at that point from Alliance to make that kind of commitment that they end up, yes, they get the Tier 2 tower in the top lane, but I think Alliance still make the better trade-off.
Oh, that's such a good DD, because I'm pretty sure the Scepter's on the way to Loda right now, and he can keep that bottled up. Yeah, that's his Scepter done. So he can keep that bottled up, pop the DD, and then head and take that big stack. That's going to be such a gigantic jump up in gold for him, and he's already on top of net worth, so you're talking probably 1,000 extra gold he's going to gain in a matter of about 20 seconds. I don't think NiP's even been in the vicinity to try to spot that outside of maybe a stray rocket flare, but he's making his way there now. So there's going to be a smoke out of NiP. They're going to have to cross the whole map to catch them, but maybe they'll catch someone at low health over here.
Yeah, they're probably going to go into jungle. In fact, yeah, you can see Hanskin. He's already drawn the line of where they want to go, so they're probably going to miss out on this ancient stack entirely.
Look how quick it's going down, too, with that DD.
Yeah, Alliance, this could just quite easily be the thing that changes the game entirely to Alliance's full favor.
That's so fast, and it's so early. I mean, you take a look, he's level 10 pure, but that DD just being so fortuitous in its timing has just allowed him to take it so quickly. And look at his net worth. Yeah, he jumped up about 1,000 gold, about 1,100 gold over top of the gyro based on that and that alone. And you have a wasted smoke out of NiP. Now, they are a little low health, so they have a little trouble defending this Tier 1. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, Ninjas and Pajamas definitely need to get a really good team fight in. Alliance, I'm not sure if they want to fight it. I think they can, simply because they do have some pretty good team fight abilities. It's going to depend heavily on like whether or not, like for example, they can toss in Admiral Bulldog to get a really good Poison Nova. That's probably the best setup for them. Oh, and an arrow on Limp as well. Maybe they can go, but it's still a Viper. It's still a very tanky hero, and looks like they don't want to go just yet.
NiP going up to the high ground. There's going to be a glimpse. Not going to be any follow-up, though. And I really like what you said, by the way, about the idea of tossing in Bulldog. If Bulldog can land, hit a good Poison Nova, and then follow with a 2- or 3-man Gale, I mean, that, even at this level, is crippling. And yes, there are some pickups that have been picked up. I saw that a Casual Cloak was actually picked up by the Clockwork, like you said, items like Pipe, items like Glimmer Cape. They can really really mitigate Venomancer's efficacy later in the game. But for right now, he still remains quite deadly, and he is quite well leveled, all things considered.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try and go for a pick off on Pycat, but Pycat, like, it's an obvious read at this point in time. They've backed up from the middle lane, so of course the first hero revealed himself before they even stopped the middle lane push was Pycat split pushing that top lane. The reason I'm feeling very pessimistic about Ninjas of Pajamas and the position that they're in right now isn't necessarily that I think Alliance are so far ahead, they're going to win team fights, etc. I don't think Alliance really should take team fights. I think the only way they win it is with that, like, toss in with the Venomancer playing, even that it's questionable to me. Instead, like, they're going to be split pushing a lot, and when they split push a lot, they open a lot of areas for Pycat to be able to make Moonlight Shadow plays, particularly with the Bane. So as they start forcing NiP to move around, dealing with the split push, it opens multiple possibilities for the Bane Mirana to be able to get pickoffs on heroes that are then isolated at that point in time. And then you've got Admiral Bulldog, who's also going to be putting a lot of pressure and keeping the lanes forward as well. So you've got two lanes that are always going to be pushed out, or at least at the river, or pushed back. And then you've got this Bane Mirana, who are either going to be split pushing, like Pycat was just doing earlier, or they're going to be getting pickoffs.
Well, it's like they're in a rock. They're between a rock and a hard place. It's okay. Let's group as 5, and if you want to try and push towers and try to force fights like that, you know that there's going to be an excellent tiny IO relocate just because it's low down AK. They know what they're doing. They're going to come in the right position. So once you're committed, you're fully committed, and you know that they're coming at you. And they actually just have a really good defensive team trying to engage into a Venomancer at this level when you're lacking items like pipe and so on and so on. It's really chancy, and if you group up, maybe you just get hit with a stray Mirana arrow. You don't know. But like you said, if they decide to just split up, the gank potential on Alliance is so tremendous in 2 different ways, with the IO and the Tiny, and of course with the Bane, the Mirana, and the Veno. There will be another smoke out of NiP, and I think this is the right call. But again, you know, I said it during the opening moments. That was actually spotted. That's remarkable.
Bulldog is just so on point with his reads of what exactly is going to happen here. I mean, you just start off with the very first ward that he placed. He caught the Disruptor sitting in that tree point. I mean, it's a very common place for supports to sit, but it was still like just a good read. This one was excellent. He just made the little bit of extra vision call uphill and ended up popping a smoke in the process, and now is probably going to get away with this. If anything, Ninjas of Pajamas are in a really bad position. I think that Admiral Bulldog could potentially play this forward because he's got a Force Staff, but it's a little bit dangerous. I think it's like kind of a risky play if he pushes forward to try and like keep the, like, he throws out the Gale to slow down the Clockwork, and then they have the opportunity for Matt to be able to catch up to him, and the rest of the team, they get a free pick off from the Clockwork. At the same time, it's just as easy that NiP will turn on Venomancer if he tries to turn, and his Force Staff is not going to be all that effective. Then again, if they turn on him, right, he's the first target, that's the ideal scenario for Venomancer, because if he gets off his Poison Nova, he's pretty much hit his max efficacy at that point in team fight. Like, that's the power of a Venomancer. You can go and throw all your damage at him in the very beginning of a fight and kill him off real quickly, but if he has half a second to get off his ultimate, well, pretty much Venomancer did his job. I mean, he will do probably about 75% of the damage that he would have done anyway if he was the last to die in a team fight.
Looks like we are ready to get back underway, and we'll see what's going to come of NiP being spotted out here. This is, you know, NiP has just not had luck with smokes at all this game. Like, in terms of trying to move out and use subterfuge to pressure Alliance, it just hasn't worked out for them. And coming back to what I said during the opening comments, I just feel like their room for error is so small right now. There will be a Nightmare. There's going to be a Gale that hits as well. Immediate popping of the Blade Mail. Cog's going to go down. They're trying to catch up. There's going to be a Poison Nova. Got a couple and a Fiend's Grip on the Hanskin. Down on the low ground. They're all grouped up. He got 2. There's the toss. Bulldog, though, didn't have Gale. Gale still on cooldown. Moonlight Shadow will be used to make sure they can extricate themselves at least a bit. Dust, though, secures the fate of Admiral Bulldog. So it ends up being a 1-for-1. And given Bulldog is transitioning into that kind of semi-core look, I actually think that does favor NiP, especially given how big of a disadvantage they were in that engagement. And Midas is still going to be an item for Viper. He just went mech first.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. I mean,
21-minute Midas?
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. It's not necessarily like the Midas is bad on Viper or the timing is unheard of or anything like that. It's just more the fact that I feel they have to put a lot of pressure on Alliance right now and fight down their towers. And
nope, no follow-up. I guess that was just blind.
Oh, they can actually get a haste rune. Bycat? Okay, I guess he didn't spot that one out.
Oh, they just spotted another stack. It's not as big as the one before, but they may go try to take it with the gyro. They will drop a sentry, and yeah, Steel Kid's going to head over there, and this is something they have to...
Top, Hanskin's going to be caught. Loda actually trying to chase him down, but now the TP out. The Glimpse is going to be able to stop that. Good catch, just a bit over aggression, and I'm not sure, was too focused on the Tiny play, but I'm not sure how Ake didn't get the Glimpse. Maybe he actually hit Static Storm and wasn't able to tether, but they catch both.
Well played out of, and that's actually a very big sequence for NiP. I mean, obviously being ahead in kills is always a good thing, but it's not just they're getting kills, it's the heroes they're killing. Managing to get low to that time, talking a big swing and golden experience we saw. It was popped up on the fight recap. The trade of Venomancer for Disruptor was very advantageous for NiP in terms of resources invested, but especially in terms of how it seemed like they were at the back foot. And Alliance has regained control of this stack. They're going to go ahead and counter-ward this, so good play from Mad there. But yeah, looking ahead, I'm with you. Like I feel like we need to see Ake and Loda getting a bit more accomplished.
I mean, maybe they feel confident about putting this a little bit more mid to late game. Like, my fear is like going up against a Tiny Wisp. You have so many options as a Tiny Wisp to split push, but it could be they feel rather confident about going late. They do have, especially if they get like Disruptor Aghanims later on in the game, that's a huge pickup against the Tiny Wisp. The Mirana is a rather, like, I think she's decently effective as a semi-carry. I think that's her best position. But she isn't like a terribly strong carry going late game, especially if she's not already ahead. But that Midas is going to, I guess it kind of like offsets the Mirana Midas in a way. You can kind of think of it that way. Oh, smoke up. They're trying to catch out again. Trying to catch out these heroes, but just don't quite get there in time, right?
Yeah,
like Pycat always like leaps away and TPs out before it happens. The Bulldog manages to get good reads with his wards and stays ahead of Ninjas in Pajamas.
That's got to be their last smoke for a while. They've smoked very aggressively this game, so it should be on cooldown. Let's see. Is it on cooldown? Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be their last smoke for a decent amount of time, and that's going to make it tough for them to fight. I mean, there's a good catch on Pycat. Let's see if they can make it happen. He already used Leap, and yeah, that's an easy kill. And, you know, that's kind of the weird thing is, like, if anything, Alliances, they're reacting well to plans.
They're going for the back door of the Tier 1 tower. The TP's already there.
Great Glyph. They're going to try to follow it up. Call down. Will catch him. That slows him down just enough. Ake eating a lot of damage as a toss, trying to buy some time. Glimpse back on Loda. Ake's way out of position, and Loda now ends up dropping for the second time in just a handful of minutes. Era gets that kill. He's on a killing spree. They got two of the cores, the Mirana and the Tiny, and NiP is doing a fantastic job now of playing this map out. And that's actually what I was going to say. The smokes haven't worked out, but just catching Alliance, being too aggressive, being slightly out of position is working to such a big advantage for them. And well played by NiP, now doubling them up in kills 10-5.
I mean, the loss of like, I can understand the play there, but it was just completely dependent on NiP just getting the reactionary TPs, and they were so quick with that. And the fact that they managed to punish the Tiny, right? Like, usually you can stop a Tiny Wisp with a split push, but the resources that you invest are usually only for a Wisp kill, so therefore it's not really worth it. Usually Tiny's able to get enough farm and maybe even put enough pressure on your towers that it's well worth it for the Tiny Wisp combination. But in this case, because the Disruptor is such a good counter to the Tiny Wisp, he's actually managed to punish the Tiny twice in a row. This now skyrockets the Gyrocopter above the 10k marker, ahead of the Tiny. He's going to have his BKB, and that is the full mid-game swing for Gyrocopter. SNY by itself was not going to be enough, but when he has the BKB, he's pretty unstoppable in these team fights, unless he just happens to be like hit by an arrow or full-time Fiend Script, which should happen.
Right. Well, that's where the importance of the stuns and so on. And like you said, Static Storm, extremely important in breaking that channel as well. And like, so much pressure is now going to be on the relocates in particular. Can you pick the gyro off? Can you slow him down? I mean, he's now 1,000 gold ahead of Tiny, despite the fact that he had that gigantic stack and he had a medium-sized stack afterwards. They're just punishing Alliance for overextending so damn well. And like you said, with the BKB up, it is so important for Alliance. I mean, I feel like it now becomes a situation where before the BKB, Alliance had a lot more options in terms of spreading the map. Now they really need all hands on deck if they want to try to run at NiP and try to accomplish big objectives like taking towers and pushing deep into enemy territory. So we'll see how they adapt.
Yeah, they really got to finish up that Assault Cuirass on Loda. As soon as they have that, they'll have a lot of greater split pushing power. I simply don't think, unless they get some amazing kind of arrow setup, that they should ever fight into NiP. Now, NiP should probably take that advantage to... I mean, if you can get a pick off and then go Roshan, that's probably the ideal play. They have a tier 1 tower at the bottom lane that they should go for eventually. So I think they should definitely group up, go for some sort of objectives, especially since the Lions are probably very greedy for some pickoffs right now.
Moon Knight Shadow is at the ready. That did get spotted. Pycat was revealed from the high ground, so they know there's at least a couple here. There's no way they'd send them out. They also know that IO Tiny is ready to join the fight at any time. And you can see NiP is playing it, cautiously-ish, but they are definitely ready to fight, trying to bully them around. Loda's going to end up showing himself in lane. And yeah, NiP able to stabilize, and
they got to go for this tower. They got to stop losing time and kind of meandering around here. They need to go for the tier 1 tower push now. They probably need to have Disruptor already TP up to the top lane, because Tiny Wisp are going to try and make the trade-off. So even if they try and relocate in to fight you, you can still catch out keep the Tiny there with a glimpse play. It has to be really well timed, but if you hit the glimpse towards the tail end of the relocate, you keep the Tiny up there in the top lane, and the relocate's completely ineffective.
There's a glimpse on Matt. He's sent back away. Looks like they wanted to engage the Johannesson fan. There's a toss that's going to end up catching the Viper. Static Storm is down. Lotus caught in it, but he is doing good damage. Okay, not so lucky. He will end up dying, but great Poison Nova from Bulldog as he caught 2 of them. And it looks like they should be able to track down at least one. Fiend Script's going to be used. There's a glimpse on Matt, but it didn't matter. Triple kill for Bulldog. So the question of whether or not he could really behave like a core answered with an emphatic yes. 4 for 1 in that exchange. That's what Alliance needed to stabilize. They had gone through this period of about 7-8 minutes of really just coming out on the back, on the bad side of fights. Now they're able to take a Roshan off of this. What a gigantic swing.
There's another double damage for Loda. So they were guaranteed to take Roshan here anyway. Just means that they are going to be able to take it very efficiently and then move on to farm up real quickly. I don't know. I felt like that was kind of the obvious maneuver, right? They're going to split push you at the top lane, and they may just fight you. So you need to put the Disruptor there in the top lane. I don't know why Gyrocopter of all heroes was the first one to go off, because obviously once the Gyrocopter leaves, of course Alliance can fight you. A Gyrocopter is by far the scariest hero for them to fight in, simply because he had such a farm advantage in a 10-second BKB. But as it is, Air's up there in the top lane watching his 4 allies just die at bottom. They don't make any good trade-offs. They lose 4 heroes, and now Ninjas and Pajamas are back in that scene. Like, it goes 2 pickoffs and Tiny's, they're a good position, and then they lose like 1 team fight like that, and now they're back to where they were.
Just so demoralizing, too. You can see, even just by the shape of the gold in the XP graph, it was a grind. It was, a number of engagements, good decision-making, very good reactions, and to fight back to feeling like, okay, now we can set the pace, and then with one bad engagement, you lose a Roshan, you lose an Aegis, you lose 4/5 of your team, and now that gold advantage has disappeared, and you have to worry about how big Loda's getting. He's got the Cuirass done, he's got the Scepter done, and he's got another 1,800-ish gold towards whatever item he wants next. However, there is a Scepter from Viper, and that's going to help them try to corral Loda much, much more.
Yeah, that'll definitely help out. Again, Viper is very good versus Tiny in that regard. I'm just a bit concerned that perhaps the Tiny is like too far ahead when it comes to the split push game. Now, Pycat may get caught. They do have a glimpse if they could just see the damn person, but Pycat's already away.
Call down, not going to get a whole lot accomplished, and we do see Lions does manage to take a tower in the meantime. They're going to try to chase Pycat down. He's got Moonlight Shadow, but he'll hide himself in the woods, and of course he can always leap and TP if needed. And this is going quite well. And, one thing Alliance is doing very, very well is not just stacking, but protecting their stacker. At the very least, keeping NiP so busy they don't have time to mess with the stack. There's going to be a nice hook as Johannesson fan manages to spot out Matt. He manages to cog him out, and now on his tail doesn't matter. That's going to be plenty of time for Air to catch up using Rocket Barrage to secure himself another kill. So not only good to get the kill, but good to get it on your gyro.
And Disruptor's the first one down to that bottom lane. Excellent idea. Of course, Alliance aren't going to push it too hard. They've already been punished a couple times. So instead, you could just take over the enemy jungle, right? The Disruptor, of course, is going to be there for the TP, but he can't control his own jungle very well. So they can farm out the jungle with Pycat. They can go ahead and clear through the stacks. Alliance had plenty of options. There's no need to go for the greedy hits on tower.
Speaking of stacks, yet another one for Loda. This time only a duo stack, I do believe. But still, that's 3,000 gold. He's got another Scepter on the map, as it's going to be this time Venomancers. And in terms of those anti-magic items, we haven't really seen those develop out yet. Again, there was a casual cloak picked up very early on by the Clockwork. Not sure where he's gone with the development of that. Yeah, he's still just hanging on to it. Haven't seen the Glimmer Cape, and we have not seen a pipe develop out quite yet. So as it stands, Venomancer, even though late game, he may end up losing the value, or at least some of the value of his ulti for now, especially with the Scepter. He's a major damage dealer, and it's going to be so hard for NiP to survive if these fights get drawn out.
Yeah, actually, I actually really like Venomancer going into the late game nowadays, because people are going to start putting priority on magic damage, because they'll usually have like BKBs, right? Those BKBs fall to 5 seconds. That is only going to take away less than a third of the damage of the Venomancer ultimate, right? Because it sticks to you. It's going to be able to go through no matter what. Alliance, another smoke play, and this could actually be the fight that seals Alliance winning, or could be the comeback.
Lotus up front. It's going to be popped. They know it's coming. Oh, they got him. Beautiful force that puts him in no man's land. Cooldown's there, and Lotus going to end up losing his Aegis, but it is an Aegis. In the meantime, Alliance trying to fight uphill. Tough row to hoe as they're losing a lot of health. Now, Johannes fan with the cogs basically separates them out. Loda back up off of the Aegis. They manage to track down Era, who is separated out. In the meantime, there's a glimpse back on the Loda into the kinetic field. He's not going to be able to survive. Viper Strike slows him down. Can't get back to the safety of his team. Era still doing good damage. Not enough, though, as he does end up dropping to Pycat. In the meantime, we've got Johannes fan trying to pursue out Ake and Pycat, and not going to go, as they know they don't have the damage behind it. And they certainly didn't have another hook. So it ends up being a 3-for-2 favoring NiP, but honestly, it's better than that. It's a 3-for-2 including an Aegis on Lotus. So big win for NiP that time.
So watch this fight that's going to be, they're going to see a replay here. The setup, Loda goes right into the full 4-man there, and they instantly take him out. But the big play, watch what Era does here. They kill Loda, Era pushes forward, good hook shot to be able to stop that Fiend's Grip, by the way. Era's going to zone out the whole entire enemy team. It's going to cost him his life, but he will be able to do it. Also, there is this one glimpse play from Hanskin that was excellent, right? They would have lost the fight from there. The two things, Era zones out the rest of the enemy team, and that glimpse is what won it. Now, you're going to see Era die here, but at the very least, they killed Loda 2 times in a row, and Era is able to make sure that they're not punished for the low HP heroes such as Limp, who had pretty much nothing, but was still kiting around the Tiny.
Oh, could not agree with you more. So worth it for them. And not just, you know, like you said, Era pushing out, brilliant play. The cogs also making it so hard for Alliance to try to re-engage and try to help out Loda, with Era especially doing damage in their face. So NiP managing that fight very well, and just trying to come uphill like that. That's why it's so risky to smoke and come uphill. I'm actually surprised they continue to push even though the smoke was popped. Loda had plenty sufficient amount of time to back off after he saw his smoke was revealed.
It's a hard read in that exact scenario, because they could just as easily be sitting on the ramp, or they could be farming up the hard or medium camp at that point in time, right? So it's like the smoke pops, but there's a 1 in 3 chance that they're sitting on the ramp, 2 in 3 chance that they're actually farming up one of those 2 camps, and you can push in and just catch them out.
If we can, let's take a look at that net worth and the experience graphs following that fight. And yeah, that's the thing is, you know, again, it just seems like Alliance is able to make up a lot of ground with 1 or 2 big fights at the most, whereas NiP still has to grind it out, and that hasn't really changed. But the later this game goes, the stronger Gyro's going to get. And, you know, this is just such a close game, Cap. I'm absolutely loving it. Both teams playing phenomenally. A slotted TI on the line. Would expect no less from this kind of talent.
As it stands, I mean, I feel like NiP are basically, again, back in the game. That win didn't necessarily ensure that they're ahead, but they're back in the game. Before, again, feeling rather pessimistic, it's kind of like we just went right back to the whole 2 pickoffs on Tiny scenario. And we'll see whether or not NiP actually managed to take this and force something out of Alliance, or if Alliance managed to just get a really good team fight again for some reason. Hanskin now has a Glimmer Cape, huge pickup against the Venomancer.
Absolutely. And yeah, and that's kind of what intrigues me. I would imagine a pipe's probably going to be on the line at some point, trying to make use of that cloak on the Clockwork. Pycat has really gotten a ton of value out of that Midas at this point. Has the Maelstrom, has his BKB, and has already built up another 1,500 gold aside from that. So he's really going to, you know, Mirana, one of those heroes that takes a fair amount of more farm compared to most late game carries that really feel like she's online and she's really serving that late game core role. But she's definitely there. The Midas pickup was smart. Viper, though, as you said, kind of a counter Midas, so he's going to be right there as well. They are going to try to take this tower. TPs were coming in. Yep, there's the gyro. There's going to be an arrow. Oh, mistimed. Mistimed it. There's going to be the toss immediately. Call down the behind that. There's going to separate the fight once again. Let's see if they can lock down Loda. Ake's coming in. Good relocate.
Nice
So
save.
Ake sacrificing himself. They do get the tower as well. Oh, missed hook from Johannes and Fan. Unable to go fishing and find much of anything. That was pretty much shot blind as the Moonlight Shadow was still active. Ake happy to give himself for Loda. And still, I thought that's more than an even trade, I think, for Alliance. They'll be happy with that. They got a tower. They did lose their IO, but whatever. Loda's gone back to farming already.
Yeah, Jonas Fan is going to be able to get a lot of utility now out of his item build. I feel like the Clockwork, I still think the Clockwork's actually pretty decent versus Tiny Wisp. It's just not quite as good as like the Darkseer that they could have picked up, but he's still a very disruptive hero against any kind of melee carry, and I think he gets a lot better as time goes on with his build. Like the Force Staff and the Aghanims means you're going to have a lot of utility, a lot of opportunity to be able to get really good cog plays, as like he can jump in, hook shot the tiny cogs, and then Force Staff himself out.
Right.
He can go ahead and Force Staff him cogs him backwards, or just get into the middle of the fight and go for like some of the support in the background, isolate them, and hope that the Tiny is then dealt with by the Viper. There's many plays that Jonas Fan can pull out here with this Clockwork. Obviously, again, the Darkseer would have been excellent, but it was a comfort hero for NiP, and I think they're doing a pretty good job dealing with this Tiny Wisp scenario that is kind of Alliance's, one of their bread and butter.
No, I would completely agree with you. The Tiny Wisp combo has not been completely ineffectual. I mean, the heroes are doing what they're doing. But in terms of their reactions have just been so good. I mean, we saw the attempt at the backdoor at the tier 1 top, and it was not just punished, but punished, heinously. I mean, it was just a terrible exchange for Alliance, and we haven't seen them be able to really take control of the map the way that you would expect, especially when you're talking about the lineup they're up against. You're talking about a lineup from NiP that really wants to run together when they do want to fight. We saw how disastrous it was when they tried to fight with just 4 without the gyrocopter. And Alliance, it's not that they haven't been able to because they're not good at it, it's that NiP has really just played so well in managing the map and not leaving those moments of opportunity to NiP.
Satanic. So this is kind of interesting. We normally would have expected something like probably a Butterfly, but this team specifically, you're very likely to see an MKB as one of the first damage items outside of the Mjolnir for Mirana. It's a really value item for her anyway. I think it's kind of natural.
Oh, glimpse.
Yeah.
Oh, Bulldog got caught. Stuck in the kinetic field, gets off the ulti. That'll do a fair amount of damage.
They might fight this if they get an arrow.
We're looking for it. That damage though from the scepter, like that's a big pick off. He's down for 60 seconds, and even just because he got his ulti off means they all have to fall back and lick their wounds and be careful.
Yeah. So going back to it, I would say like the Butterfly is a natural pickup for the Gyrocopter, but MKB is a natural pickup for the Mirana. That's start one. But I think the biggest thing is actually the fact that you're facing up against a Venomancer core. I think that really takes you into the Satanic box, right? Because there's so much. It's all damage over time and no control with the Venomancer. Lifesteal, especially heavy lifesteal like Satanic, is exactly the way to be able to deal with that. He's pretty much making it so even like when he doesn't have BKB up, that Poison Nova isn't doing anything because he'd just be able to out lifesteal it. So I think it's a pretty interesting pickup. I like it a lot.
Arrow on the Johannes and Fan. Damage is pretty high from Mirana. Can she do it on her own? It's going to be tough. Manages to complete a scepter in the meantime. And BKB,
nice.
Nope. Very well played. Drop the cogs and the blade mail, and yep, got away.
Seeing if Jonas would actually try and go for the ditch out hook shot, but of course with the Moonlight Shadow use, that would be a very YOLO play.
This is cute. Loda and actually, yeah, Mad showed himself, but the Moonlight Shadow was used for an obvious reason to get Mirana out of trouble. But Ake and Loda happen to be in the right position to just wander in. It is going to be spotted though. Let's see if they want to hang. That's a lot of damage being done. There's a stun, and they're going to collapse here. This is very chancy for Alliance. Let's see if they've got anyone in position to stop this. Ake knows he has to get out. And Loda's just going to BKB go right on to that Ogre Magi. Manages to bring him down. Now we've got Era trying to pursue out Ake. Loda in the meantime, though, having his BKB kited, and he's unable to do much of anything. They're kiting him so well because of the Viper Strike. Ake's still alive, just barely by the skin of his teeth. He's going to end up dropping in the Viper behind the fight. Now Era coming back to re-engage, and Loda's going to end up down. Bulldog gets off the Poison Nova. Too little, too late, however, as the damage is done. Viper does end up dead. There's another on-point glimpse. Bulldog going to be the next to drop 4 for 2, and with Era still standing, he's got the life still. He may head into the pit, and he will. Going to be an Aegis for the first time this game, going to NiP.
Pycat throwing out some random arrows, just seeing if he can catch anything, but of course, against 3 heroes, potentially, like the Satanic Gyrocopter is going to be full HP. You've got Urns to keep Unison Fawn up to full health as well, so they're excellent play. I mean, that was a good read from Clockwork to be able to throw the hook, like the rocket flare into the pit. You knew Moonlight Shadow was used. Excellent play by him, and the rotation just managing to get there in time. I think they were very fortunate in that regard. Another thing is that they're doing excellently versus the Wisp. The production, I know you're going to ask me, MVP, you're going to want to queue up either one of the supports, right? It's either Hanskin or Ake. Ake is actually doing really well. You would call this some amazing relocate plays if he wasn't facing up against a Disruptor, and NiP were playing really well up against Ake, right? Like in that fight, what does Era do? He knows that he doesn't need to go on the Tiny. Who cares about the Tiny? They kite him excellently with the Viper. All he has to do is chase away the Wisp, and that's what he does. Ake makes the best of this scenario, which he just draws the Gyrocopter as far away as possible, and at the last second relocates in to help out the Tiny, but it's the only thing he could do. He made the best out of a bad scenario, and it was bad for everyone there on the side of Alliance.
Barring big change, my vote unequivocally goes to Hanskin. Yes. It's so hard. As a Disruptor, you know, you have to get kind of close. I mean, yes, you've got good range on Glimpse, Kinetic Field, Static Storm, but you're a target that tends to get focused down. He's managing to keep himself alive long enough to cycle his spells a couple of times in all of these fights, and that's actually more tricky than it sounds whenever you're up against a team like Alliance who knows just how crippling it is to have a Disruptor skirting around the perimeter and just continuing to manipulate the fight, control the fight, so on and so on. And he's played a phenomenal game. So many of these fights have been close to even that Hanskin gets a great glimpse. Hey, look what we're talking about. Static Storm on the Bulldog as well. Will he get his ulti off before he dies? Not going to be the case. So very well played once again. Not the hardest play in the world, but still he's been consistent with it, and he's made the right reads and the plays at the right time. And NiP feels like they are solidly in the driver's seat. Cap, what's Alliance got to do to change this? They have lost control of this game. What can they do to regain it?
Hard split push bottom. Hope you can put pressure on the tier 3 before NiP get there, but NiP already read the map. They know they've got enough creeps there in the bottom lane. They'll be able to get uphill before Alliance does, and that's significant. Oh, nice jump. They're going to be able to get Mad. That's a huge kill.
Oh, what a gigantic. Oh, no, he nightmares himself, buys a little bit of time. They're still going to pick him off. Mad is so essential in trying to deal with any kind of high ground push from NiP, because that's going to be the best opportunity you're going to have to try to hit that full duration Fiend's Grip from a weird angle, especially onto Era. For now, though,
they give up racks.
Oh, man.
They have to give up racks. I think there's no play where they actually fight this one out, but Clockwork's going to try and catch him.
Clockwork coming in. Oh, he actually hits the creeps. Now he's going to be able to cog him in. He's probably going to give him his life, but here comes the TPN. They've already got one there. Loda uses the BKB. That is one big-ass Tony swinging a big stick and going to work on those racks. In the meantime, I'm sure the racks back in Alliance's base are already dropped, and he's going to be able to chop down at least one. Here comes Era. Oh, beautiful shot. Good hook shot coming from Giannis and Van, and now Loda just continuing to chop wood, but he knows he's left all alone. Moonlight Shadow buying him some time. That's a cute
little going for the range racks. Beautiful.
Like, is he going to have the damage? Is it worth giving his body for? He's going to get the racks for sure. It's going to end up dying, but the racks probably going to end up being something. Can they get Era? He's chopping away. The lifesteal's not enough. Gets the toss, but the lifesteal did manage to keep him alive, and they end up giving it up, but it ends up being a racks for a racks exchange. So honestly, I don't know that Alliance going to help for a
First of all, like, Alliance knowing, okay, especially with the Bane pickup, right, there's no way you fight that middle lane engagement. Jonas Fun, like, he had the right idea, go back, interrupt their attempted push, and, you know, use buyback even to be able to stop that. I think his initial hookshot is really what killed their racks as a whole, actually. I think that was unfortunate, but he makes up for it with the buyback, going back in and managing to kill Ake to make sure that the Tiny doesn't actually escape, and then Luna makes the best, again, of a bad situation. You know Moonlight Shadow's going to run out. You know you're going to be revealed. There's no one to run to, right? So he makes the turnaround, gets the range racks. Beautiful.
Well played, and NiP now back to dead even. We're at 44 minutes in. Gyro and Tiny are just right on top of each other in terms of farm. We've got a barn burner on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. Game 1 of this best of 2 series. Would not be surprised to see this game go
NiP needs Silver's Edge. I don't want to see Yasha. Silver's Edge would be huge against that Tiny. I mean, you saw how he's got Satanic yet, and he's still a little bit questionable 2 versus 1 against the Tiny. That's solely because if you get really, really good craggy exterior procs on the Tiny, Tiny, you'll win a lot of engagements that you shouldn't, right? So I think it's pretty key that they take that one away. And really, honestly, where do you go with a Viper after you already have your mech, BKB, and Aghanim Scepter? There's not a whole lot of damage builds that are really that effective for Viper. I think just the value out of Silver's Edge is going to be significant, plus it makes him tankier.
Whoa. There was a, Hanskin, yeah, he got 4 steps ahead. There's going to be an arrow. Will catch him. They're going to engage. Loda got hit with the Viper Strike, still doing plenty of damage. BKB is active. He's chopping away, but they're continuing to kind of fairly well behind that. We see Bulldog's in trouble, got corralled in the kinetic field, ends up dropping down. Alliance still has Loda going to work, but Era doing a great job keeping himself alive in the meantime. Buyback from Bulldog. He wants to come back and re-engage. Pycat's BKB expires. Mad, very close to dead. And Moonlight Shadow, they're going to be able to get him. Whew, so close. Ends up being a 1-for-1, but Alliance did expend a buyback in the meantime. So, yeah, we can see slight win for NiP there, but the BKB timers are getting lower and lower and lower. If nothing else, these teams have to take that into account.
Yeah, MKB is now going to be up on our gyrocopter. There's no evasion, but it's a natural pickup for him anyway. Do they actually have... Oh man, they don't even have Solar Crest. So, like, that would have been the one bit of evasion that MKB would have been able to clean through, but they don't even have that. Bane is actually, I think, trying to go for a 4-staff play here. A little bit of mobility for his Bane rather than finishing up the Solar Crest with the medallion he already has. And then you just went straight damage on Pycat, which I think is his best idea. It was either MKB or Daedalus. You have no Butterfly on the gyrocopter, so therefore I think you go Daedalus. I think that's the right idea.
Well, yep, we had 2 crit sticks come out in the meantime. Tiny and Mirana finished theirs. And like you were saying, it makes a ton of sense. You're dealing with some heroes that are very tough, tanky, hard to bring down heroes. The BKBs are out. You have the Glimmer Cape. You have a fair amount of magic resistance. A couple of cloaks come out at some point. I don't know if Clockwork ever actually did anything with his.
Era might actually be going for...
No, he must have sold it, or he's going to drop somewhere. But anyway, NiP still in a great position. They lead this game by 10 kills. And the gyro, I mean,
Era's going for, I think he might be going for a divine play.
Yeah, I was thinking
not right now, right? But if he's able to hold on to this gold and they secure Roshan, which is coming up in a few seconds, they get the Aegis for the gyrocopter. It's an obvious divine play at that point, right? It's just like questionable right now. Like, obviously you don't think about it because it's like, well, you're not going to go for it when you don't have an Aegis like that, but they know it's coming up.
Well, it makes a ton of sense too. Whenever you talk about, I mean, we've seen it a couple of times.
No, they go back to MKB.
Aww.
Oh, no, he actually bought advanced boots of travel. So
still maybe banking? Could be.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, it would make a ton of sense because you have Mirana, for example, who is playing in that secondary core position, who's built pure glass cannon. I mean, she has no survivability. I mean, she's got, I guess, a BKB that helps, and she's got a little bit of drums, but I mean, she's basically built for attack speed and for damage. So if you manage to get a rapier, she has to kind of stay back. She wants to necessarily stay back. Suddenly, flat cannon's doing a ton of damage there. Aki is going to die in about 2 shots. The Bane, who's going to be trying to hang around and try to get himself in a good position for a Fiend's Grip. It's going to be real tough life for him, and sieging high ground becomes so much easier, especially since you're doing such an effective job of kiting the Tiny as it stands.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of possibilities for what Era goes for. Like, obviously, he's not going to buy out MK. Like, he can afford it again, but he's not going to buy it out right now because he needs to hold on to buybacks. So there's definitely a lot of plays. I love the advanced booth travel, though, because it's so necessary. I think this is actually a huge nerf to Tiny Wisp, is that advanced boots of travel is excellent against because at that point in time, like, if your team is like 4-manning into the jungle or something, it gets caught, you can still be there without needing a creep wave. Generally speaking, jumping into a creep wave, especially mid-team fight, is super questionable.
They're smoked up as a team, moving through the Radiant jungle, and they got vision. They see him. They're going to engage. Moonlight Shadow has been engaged. And there's going to be a Fiend's Grip immediately on the Steel Kid. There's going to be a blink on the Bucky Man trying to get him out of position. He does. Steel Kid's going to end up dropping. There's going to be the Poison Nova coming out from Admiral Bulldog. In the meantime, Era losing a lot of health. He's got critted huge. Down he goes. And now NiP on the run. He's down for 90 seconds. You know, as a fan drops the cogs and trying to cover their retreat, that should be sufficient enough to get the rest of them out of trouble. But that's what Alliance needed so desperately and could not have been timed better. Roche just came up, and now they've got an Aegis and a cheese they should be able to claim with no problem at all. And I'll tell you what,
oh my God,
cheat
it's another double damage.
Cheat codes. Loda finds himself another double damage, right time, right place. Poor Aegis, or poor Roshan, about to drop his 3rd Aegis of the game.
Jesus, and he's got 4,300 gold now. This is getting rough. Man, I'm actually like the Alliance smoke play. That
they
really
had
couldn't
to
have
have
got better.
Yeah, they had to have it.
I really don't think that could have gone better for them. I mean, the NiP did a really excellent job like covering themselves with that whole entire play. Like the fact that they only lost one hero there, but boy, it just really goes to show like the straight power, the straight raw damage coming out from Daedalus was really effective against that Gyrocopter who just like couldn't Satanic fast enough, right, to be able to recover those HP points. He doesn't have evasion, so they don't need MKBs. They go straight criticals. They get a couple of crits, and all of a sudden the Gyrocopter is so low that he can't recover.
Alliance now maybe saying they're completely in the driver's seat, maybe a little generous, but certainly in a position to press NiP any way they want. At this point of the game, I mean, you're talking 15 minutes with a couple of the best flash farmers in all of Dota. So when you're talking about 2,000-3,000 net worth lead across an entire team, that's really not all that significant. What is significant, though, is that the net worth has swung in Alliance's favor on their cores at the very, very least. Bulldogs on par with Clockwork. And, but even then, the lead, I mean, Viper is about 5K behind, about one big item behind the other cores of Alliance, and, of course, the NiP's own core of Gyrocopter. But this is just a really even game across the board. And, whenever you get to this stage, 50 minutes and deeper, it just really becomes all about the plays, man, because both teams are itemizing correctly. They're making pretty good reads. They're making good decisions. Just who's going to come through in a big moment.
Ooh, look at Disruptor. He's got 2,800 gold. He's got an Ogre Club. That Aghanims is significant. I mean, like, if he's able to lock down the Tiny before he gets off the BKB,
oh man,
like it's so big, right? Because you can't just like pop the BKB preemptively when you go into the relocate. So relocating into a static storm is like impossible. And I think that's one of the best things about Alliance's 5-man smoke there in the bottom lane. They're not relying on a relocate play, which is shown to be questionable against Hanskin, who's playing such a good Disruptor game this game.
Going to work on the tier 2 mid. Not going to be contested at all from NiP. And if they're going to do that, they may just end up giving up the tier 2 top as well. Looks like they're not feeling super confident. They'd rather force Alliance to try to take them high ground.
To 6.84, there's something to be said about Advanced Boots of Travel being rather effective versus Tiny Wisp, and in a way, it is a slight nerf. But that doesn't offset the obvious, much more obvious advantage that they get in 6.84 with Moonshard.
Oh, no doubt.
Right, because Tiny always, like, Tiny at this point in time is usually the one who gets 6 slotted first, and attack speed is such a big factor for him, and he's going to have it real quickly here. And
they're going to continue to push. No more outer tier towers remaining. It's going to be tier 3. Loda's going to be hit with a Viper Strike. Let's see how they want to follow it up. Ake's right in his back pocket per usual. That tier 3, still standing, but just momentarily. Loda got hit with the homing missile. And yeah, they're going to take the tier 3. That's actually a really bad glyph. That's actually a really bad glyph. Because it didn't prevent anything. Like, and I think Alliance is going to back off of that anyway. Like you said, the Moonshard is something that they were going to want before really trying to take a game-ending push anyway.
Yeah, there's the middle lane that was pushing in as well. So unfortunate that NiP blow it there and really don't get anything out of it necessarily. They may feel like they've just pushed back Alliance successfully, but yeah, still a rough situation for them to be sitting in here. I noticed an item, and I actually forgot what it was that I wanted to talk about here.
Rapier's still an option. I mean, obviously, if that does end up being the direction Era ends up going, it'll be a bit because he's going to want to bank for buyback on top of the last investment of 3,800 he's going to need. But I'm beginning to think it's going to be necessary. I mean, Alliance is doing such a good job now of managing these fights. Just the threat of flat cannon and the crits, and I mean, it's just so tremendous. And we saw last night in Na'Vi versus Vega, it can completely swing a game.
I think Jonas really needs Halberd right now to finish up that Sange, right?
Yep.
So couple of factors, right? There's no MKBs, so the evasion's going to be really effective, especially the Mirana, who's, you can't forget about the Mirana's damage. She's dishing out quite a bit. Very glass cannon build, so he's having to deal a lot from her. But also, if you get the Static Storm on Tiny, you can't pop the BKB, you can also halberd him.
Hook in. Loda got hit with the Viper Strike as well. He's lost half of his HP to basically accomplish nothing. So good defense that time from NiP. He does still have his Aegis, so he may feel confident and expending it. That actually just felt a little sloppy out of Alliance. Just letting Tiny face tank up front makes sense when he has an Aegis, but it didn't seem like they were really prepared to engage off of it if things went well. Instead, he's going to back up. He's going to have his Moonshard up, and he's going to go ahead and find another DD. Why not?
Yes.
That's what that's
People
the
joke about the
one.
S4 rune. This game's making me feel like this is the Loda rune. I mean, this is ridiculous. Oh, Ake actually picked it up with his bottle. I mean, there could have been some sort of play where they dropped like I'm not sure what, on Loda and give the bottle to him, and he picks up the double damage, so they save it for him later on, or maybe they just don't feel like it's the correct play to fight in the next 2 minutes, which means they'll probably wait on Roshan at that point. NiP, knowing that the Aegis is down, are now going to go for a 5-man smoke, or a 4-man smoke rather, with, again, the Gyrocopter able to do the advanced boots of travel play in.
Just going to let him continue to farm. He's up to 5,300 gold, so we'll see what the itemization is going to be coming out. I think everyone in this situation with the gyro, with the game getting very, very late, approaching an hour long now, everybody kind of crosses their fingers and hopes for the rapier play. But it's a 10,000 gold lead. The experience is actually dead even, but it is a significant overall gold lead now. For Alliance. I mean, once you get in the 5-figure territory, even in the late game, you can't say that's not significant. Alliance is going to move out under cover of Moonlight Shadow. Looks like the line has been drawn. They're going to be moving in the right direction. Don't know if they're going to get there in time to really accomplish anything. It's maybe. It's going to be close. Yep, they're going to be revealed by that rocket flare anyway. So, nope, nothing happening.
Yeah, Jonas, again, good read. They could be coming through that section. Makes the call out with the flare, and does successfully get them out of that situation. Alliance are going to be kind of poking at Ninjas and Pajamas as much as possible to see if they can get the pick before Roshan, because the straight-up Roshan fight is still very questionable. There's enough holding abilities that they can actually make the tens of thousands of net worth that Loda's holding on to pretty much useless, right? If they kite him efficiently and manage to lock him down in the Static Storm, or maybe just chase away the Wisp and maybe kill him, or lock him down in the Static Storm, that they don't actually get some sort of relocate save, he could easily just be kited out and he doesn't dish out a single right-click in the whole entire fight. So
and when we've seen them win lopsidedly, they've done just that.
Yeah, so there is definitely Alliance shouldn't be feeling really confident about being able to take Roshan, despite the fact that they're ahead in net worth.
Well, sorry fans, not going to be a rapier, at least not yet, as the Talisman. Well, I mean, I guess he could still go either direction, but the Talisman of Evasion was picked up by Era.
I mean, Talisman has so much value right now, right? Because there's still no MKB. You don't want to go on MKB on the Tiny, but he's going to be forced into it. Mirana, fortunately, is already ahead of that eventual butterfly play. For now, just the Talisman with the MKB picked up on him. Again, it's a natural pickup as well for Mirana, so it works out either way.
Shard is such a big buff to Tiny. Like,
yes.
The fact that he has that attack speed now while he can build towards one more big eye. I mean, just such a big buff. And I really love Tiny IO in this patch. I think it fits with the skirmish style that most teams are finding to be effective. I think he fits in well with a lot of the drafts and the supports that are, at least so far, have seen popularity in the meta. And I would expect we're going to continue to see it, not just throughout the remainder of these qualifiers, but probably to a certain extent at the very least onto the main stage of TI. So
yeah, everything from like the certain gold exchanges, as also like certain items being introduced. Like generally it's a team fight meta, I think, and the counter to team fight meta is going to be split push, right? So the Tiny both serves as pretty strong team fight, and as you said, is able to get into those skirmishes, which are pretty important to set the tempo of the game. Is good in those team fights because he's such a good brawler, but he also provides split push possibilities as well. So
another double damage, by the way. They're going to get another double damage at the top rune spot. Oh, okay. Yeah, nope. Loda's going to take it.
This is disgusting.
It is. Like, it's loaded with the DDs, and it's always Dindy with the haste runes. It's always Dindy with the damn haste rune. But yeah, he's just going to use it to continue to farm right now, keeping that mid lane pushed out. They lost those racks a while ago. And both teams playing it very cautiously. Roshan, at this point, obviously going to be the main center of attention, and likely the scene of a fight that may not determine the entire game, but damn well is going to have a huge effect on its complexion. Roshan's back up. That's a DD. They may have seen Ake tether in there. And they're going to see him now.
God, it's going to die so quickly, though.
Oh, they got to go so fast. His attack speed's so high. They get a DD. They're going to move in. Here we go. Viper Strike should lead, and it will. Loda going to be slowed down. There's going to be the hook in. They caught Ake. Aegis picked up by Tiny. No, now he's coming back out, and Era, as much damage as he's doing, just can't stand the fight. But he got high grounded. He got high grounded. So he can't do anything. He's stuck. Bulldog, in the meantime, going to be cleaned up. It's currently a buyback coming out on Ake. Ake has to get to the fight and try to help Loda out. Heard a hook somewhere. Pycat going toe-to-toe with Era. Will end up coming out on the bad side of it. 3 for 2. They got the Disruptor and they got the Ogre Magi. They did get Tiny out of dodge, though. So Tiny not only didn't die, he got high grounded, and unfortunately for Alliance, that cost them the fight. But with the buyback from Ake, they're able to salvage things.
Jonas, some fun, man. Pulling it out in the clutch.
Such a player.
3,700 gold down on him. He can finish up the halberd play. Again, the MKBs are going to be picked up eventually by Tiny, already up for the Mirana, but the halberd at play I still think is significant, particularly since you still have the Static Storm Silence to be able to lay down. But let's take a look at the replays, shall we? No, so watch the way they can still take the fight even if they get Roshan here, right? It would have been tough, but the fact that Loda now, his BKB is going to run out here in just a second, and he's fighting right underneath the cogs, but as soon as the BKB goes down, high ground, and the fight's won from there, because their relocate play had to come from Ake in order to be in that fight in the first place. So he had to buy back, relocate in. There's no save to quickly get him out there. He can send him back to base, but it means the fight is lost 100%, and Ninjas in Pajamas managed to walk away with a win.
One other small play there that I honestly didn't notice in the heat of the action, but I caught it on the replay. Pycat threw one of the most unlucky arrows of his life. There were heroes grouped up right near the mouth of that Roche entrance, like 3 of them for NiP, and they couldn't have seen it coming. He was at such an angle, they should not have seen the arrow coming, and they just happened to split up and move at just the right time. So who knows? I mean, like you said, the high ground play certainly is what swung it, but maybe if you land an arrow on the Viper, maybe it's a little bit better. But either way, well played by NiP, and well played, Johannesson fan.
All right, Alliance.
Hook. Hello, Mad. Mad is going to be using Moonlight Shadow. He actually got cogged up to the high ground. Oh, that's a bad decision. As, yeah, you ran into the wrong neighborhood. He's going to go ahead and try to wait on his team to come back. BKB is going to be used by Loda. Homing missile will bounce off of that. Beautiful Poison Nova out of Admiral Bulldog. Got a handful of them, but he's still being kited. Has the Aegis, is going to end up feeding it amidst the Static Storm in the kinetic field. So they still end up losing the Bane, and the follow-up fight has not gone their way. BKB going to be used by the Viper now. He's being chased out. Era trying to kite him and doing a great job. It's so effective using that Poison Strike.
It's got to relocate. Ake needs to be able to save Loda soon. He's getting kited quite heavily.
And Loda still very low. Has
oh my God, Haste Rune!
Are you kidding me? The runes for Alliance, absolutely bonkers. They're going to be able to continue to pursue this out. Force Staff is there. They catch Arrow with an avalanche. The right clicks bring him down.
How do you win a fight when literally the best play is kiting a Tiny and he picks up a haste rune that gets right there at 16 minutes? Unbelievably unlucky. Ninjas in Pajamas now going to have to fight this with a buyback. They might have just lost the game.
I don't think they can. Without the Viper, how can they fight? The Viper's the most, that's the most important hero in kiting Loda. The most important hero in being able to manage these fights. They're going to lose this rack for sure. NKB just completed. Johannesson trying to buy time. Kinetic Field's going to be there, but it doesn't matter. Loda's chunking away a quarter of the health of these buildings with one big swipe. Going to work on Era. Era's back up. There's a buyback on Johannesson fan now. And that's going to be enough to force them back, but the damage is done.
Oh, they needed more. They needed to catch something. Hanskin, he forced out himself into trees, and now he can't get a glimpse play.
Hey, production, I want to change my MVP vote to Rune. Just the runes. Just I want to.
Oh my God! They're gonna take the range racks. That was the only thing left. Mega is now up. Oh, Ninjas in Pajamas. You should have seen that one coming, but they gotta be on tilt.
I don't even know what you like. If you're NiP, what are you talking about? You like that fight at the top rune spot should have been won and was for all intents and purposes run. They were kiting Loda beautifully, and like you said, haste rune after 4 or 5 of the most fortuitous double damage runes we've ever seen. I mean, just not to take anything away from Alliance in their play, they certainly played well enough to win. But with Megas, it's desperation time for NiP, and they've just got to be feeling gutted at the fact that just a little bit of RNG at the wrong time. Not saying that it completely cost them the game, but it certainly did some serious damage.
I personally think that it was a bad idea for Ninjas in Pajamas to take the fight after they killed Tiny once. I think they should have backed away happy with the win because they knew there was still the Tiny, the Wisp relocate outplay, right? Because they had already used their Static Storm. They still could have been that play. So for me, I think they should have backed out. But yeah, the haste rune was really unfortunate and just cost them a couple of kills there that may snowball against them quite heavily. Looks like Ninjas in Pajamas are actually now going to take it to Alliance's back doors. They have to against Mega Creeps. They have to go straight for Throne at this point.
Oh, what an amazing Poison Nova. NiP having trouble trying to engage now. Loda is going to be kited. Static Storm is going to be on point, but it just doesn't matter. Their base is about to be pushed by a gigantic wave of creeps. They have to take this fight and not just take it, but take it well enough to win with it. Not going to be the case. Era barely able to make it away. The damage output from Alliance way too high. They hold ground. 3 are down for 1. GG, well played.
Ooh, man.
65 minutes. And really, I mean, impressed with the play on both sides. We talked about the advantages Alliance is going to have, the way they're going to be able to manage the map, the way they're going to be able to pressure NiP. NiP, for the vast majority of that game, Cap, did such an unbelievable job of managing all of that. Their reactions were on point. Their reads were on point. They didn't have the most effective smokes, granted. They had a little bit of wasted time there. But for the most part, they were able to just manage